Mr. Marine.
Good morning, everyone. AM Lockport. Beautiful morning here in Western New York. We're going to have a very fun meeting because I love the subject. I love the subject very much, and it's something dear to my stomach. But before we get into that, we're going to start with an inspiration. Our inspiration today is by Mike Florio. Mike, give us some inspiration for today.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. May the blessing of joy abide within you. May the blessing of peace rest upon you. May the blessing of love flow out throughout you. May the blessing of the Lord be with you all throughout today. That's unknown.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you. Please make sure you're muted so that we don't have multiple voices. And I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I can't wait. I actually took the entire day off of work today for our wonderful day of Toastmasters and everything we have planned throughout the day, but we'll have more of that at Post Toasty. So please hang around because we're doing a couple of things after the meeting, probably in person rather than a Post Toasties on Zoom. So please stay and get that notification. And with every meeting, we have a Toastmaster. And this Toastmaster is one that I always love his subjects. They're always very, very dear to everyone. In Western New York with Freddy's Donuts, definitely makes it hit home. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Toastmaster of the day so that he can get us rolling, Mr. Dr. Gerald Stevens, everyone. Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Thank you, Tom. So donuts. Donuts is spelled two ways. I don't know if you know this. D-O-N-U-T-S, D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T-S. That is bizarre. I never really realized that's our researcher's topic. Why donuts today? What is the motivation behind the donut theme? Well, I recently did a trip to the Adirondacks, and I had this little map that I found. I don't know if you could quite see it, but it said Adirondack Guilty Pleasures. So my wife saw this and she said, "This is for you." So not only does it have all the donut shops in all the Adirondacks, it has 11 breweries.
Nice.
Which I have to explore. And the map has all
That works.
the ice cream stands in the Adirondacks. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And when I usually go to the Adirondacks, I do go to a little place called Inlet, Mary Pine's Bakery, and they make what I would call pretty close to perfect eclairs, just the right amount of crispiness. The cream filling is not too sweet, definitely homemade, and the frosting, I believe, is homemade because it is not super sweet at all. So those of you that don't like too sweet things, it's actually pretty close to perfect. And right across the street is Blue Line Coffee. So you get fresh ground coffee or whatever type you want. There's a variety. And I particularly chose the s'more latte. So I was enjoying a few of these guilty pleasures this recent trip that I had. So I'd like to do a toast. With the pandemic calming down a little bit, we are actually able to enjoy a few guilty pleasures. So here's to enjoying life. At this point in the meeting, I'd like to introduce our roll holders today. Our word master, Katie Orr. Katie, what is our word of the day?
Good morning, everyone. What a fun topic. My favorite donut place started in Pittsburgh. It's Peace, Love, and Little Donuts. And then they started a place in Buffalo a couple of years ago. And they're fun because they're little. So you could have maybe 2 or 3 of the different flavors. So you don't have to choose between for your favorites. So check out Peace, Love, and Little Donuts. They survived the pandemic. So you can go in person or take some to go. The word of the day is enticing. Donuts are very enticing for some of us. This will be a challenge to avoid sugar that later this morning, everyone might be craving donuts if you don't have them already. Attracting, tempting, alluring, drawing people in. The pictures behind a few of us are doing just that. Thank you, Mr. Toast.
Try to use the word enticing in each of your speaking moments today. Our master is Michael Licata. Could you explain your role?
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My role this morning as the odd master will be to count the ahs, ums, and pregnant pauses during the meeting, along with some of the other filler words that we tend to use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Our next role holder is the grammarian, Jen Zappa. Tell us your role, please.
Good morning. I am sad to report to all of you that I don't quite find donuts as enticing as the rest of you seem to. I will say my very favorite donut place in the entire world is in Galway, Ireland. They have a little Saturday morning farmers market there. And there's a gentleman yelling out, "Scrummy hot fresh donuts!" And that's how you know that they're going to be good. I only like donuts when they're hot and fresh. So locally I get Duke's, and that's the only donuts that I like locally. But my role today has nothing to do with donuts. I'm not going to be counting your O's. Well, maybe I will be counting your O's. So that's the closest it'll get. O's, ums, ahs, any sort of filler word that you may use, I will count and report back at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Our quote master today is James Wilkerson. I don't know if I pronounced your last name right, but James, you are our quote master. Or Jim.
Good morning. I have some enticing quotes for everybody. A donut is a sprinkled incarnate of happiness, and the donut wore a glazed expression as it was about to be devoured. Coffee isn't enough. Donut lovers are the best kind of people. Donuts are a valid excuse to eat cake for breakfast. Mr. Toastmaster.
I'd agree with that. Jill did say that she might not be at the meeting, so I prepared with a couple of jokes. What do you call an uncivilized donut? A barbarian. What was the donut's least favorite part of the day? Not really sure, it just glazed over their day. What kind of evidence can a donut take to trial? Anecdotal evidence. Not great today, sorry guys. Best I could do. Our next role holder today is Len Thornton. He's our timer. What are your duties, Len?
I am the timer today. And that reminds me of a time when I was young and walking to school on Bailey Avenue, and there was a donut shop. And as a third grader, I would save up my allowance, and whenever I had a dime, I would stop in there and get a chocolate glazed twister. My favorite donut of that time. It was so delicious. But my role today as timer is to time everybody, and I'll do that using the app on my phone and changing my backgrounds from green to red to yellow, like so. So tag me, put me in a spot where you can see me if you're a speaker today. I guess pin is the word we're looking for. And then you'll stay on time, as we all endeavor to do, enticing as it is to go long. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. Our tech and gesture master is Tom Heldman. Tom. Oh, you're muted, Tom.
There we go. I am tech and gesture master this morning. Hopefully everyone is technically proficient, a good distance from the camera so that we can see your gestures. And we are enticed by your gestures to draw us into your speech. So eye contact, distance from the camera, maybe even a prop like a donut.
Ooh.
Back to you.
Thank you, Tom. And our quiz master, Phil Russell. Your role, please.
Oh, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My job is to listen to the meeting and come up with a few questions at the very end to see if you've been paying attention. Now, my most enticing donut shop no longer exists, unfortunately. As you ride down Route 18, there's a little shop that was an Amish store. I would go in there and they would have nicely glazed donuts. But more importantly, their critters were so fresh, warm, and when you bit into them, you could feel that grease going all through your veins. So, oh, apple fritters, they would have any kind of fruit fritters you would ever want. Now, I know Paula's is the biggest and the best, but this was so good. Those warm, greasy donuts, unbelievable. These Amish folks in their bakery knew how to cook a good donut. Mr. Toastmaster.
Sounds very enticing. I wish he was still around. So, like most things that I do, I like to talk a little about history. So, what is the history of the donut? Where did it come from? Who knows, right? Well, Wikipedia knows, apparently. So, the donut was thought to be first brought over by Dutch settlers. There was a word they used that it basically looks like oily cake, and that's what it means, oil cake, because they cooked it in oil, right? So that's what is thought. It was brought originally to New York City and then spread from there. However, we have a few disputed claims on the history of the donut and claiming they brought it over. It's thought to be the Dutch, but there was a guy named Hanson Gregory in 1847. He claimed to invent the ring donut, so maybe a little more specific. He was tired of a soft, doughy center in the donuts, so he took the center of the donut out. So he claims to invent the ring donut. However, there has been a cookbook discovered from the 1800s from a Baron Dimsdale. Don't ask me where they're a baron from. It didn't say in Wikipedia. But they claim apparently to have the original donut recipe. So there is some controversy over the origin of a donut. And we don't have a lot of people that don't have roles today. So there's going to be a bunch of people that will double up for table topics, it looks like. Ryan Flory did tell me that he would be here for a speech today. So hopefully he'll pop in shortly. We don't have an evaluator one. I'm aware of that. But at this point, we don't need an evaluator one. I don't know if Mark wants to just have 5 questions. That would be okay too. And I know we don't have a general evaluator, but most people have their roles. So I will definitely take a spontaneous evaluation of my role and the evaluators. But at this point, I'm hoping someone else pops on and I can assign them. So Mark, are you ready with table topics?
I am ready, but as far as having like an extended version of table topics, that would imply that I have more than 3 questions to ask. So let's see if I can come up with more than that, more than 3. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. I am certain such a thing may exist already, but work with me on this and let's pretend that I am a pioneer, and I have just established the Great American Donut Hall of Fame. And I want some of my fellow Toastmasters to join me on the nominating committee to come up with our inaugural class of inductees into this National Donut Hall of Fame. So I would like to start with David Licata. David, aloha, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful trip. It looked quite amazing. Please remember, I granted you special dispensation to go beyond your Facebook allotment of pictures on your vacation. You're welcome. David, so you're on the nominating committee, the inaugural class of inductees. There are national donut chains, there are regional donut chains, and then there are local donut chains. However, give me the first 3 donut shops that absolutely positively need to be in the Donut Hall of Fame.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. I wish we had some guests. As a youth, I found that I had 2 sources for Freddy's Donut, the famous one on Main Street in Buffalo. Freddy's, keep in mind, used to get a royalty from Krispy Kreme because the Southern boys from Krispy Kreme came up north to see how Freddy did it. And when they saw the conveyor belt, Krispy Kreme went back and used that system as well. And they were kind enough, rather than just steal it, they did play Freddy a royalty. Freddy's contribution to Western New York cuisine was the peanut stick. Peanut sticks are very hard to find anywhere but the Buffalo market. So that's Freddy's contribution, plus all the good they did with people with fundraising and helping them make money for good causes. Now then the obvious one, because this is rather subtle, but I was enticed by the way that Paula kind of paid her homage to Freddy, because Freddy named Freddy's after himself and Paula named Paula's after herself. So that's number 1 and number 2. If you're going to go to Paula's Donuts, you have to remember that you can't eat for 2 days before that. You better come in rip roaring hungry and get a nice cup of coffee to wash it down. Now, through my adventures, I discovered a place called Donut Craze. It's off Brighton, very close to Kenmore East High School. I've been in there. They have a myriad of crazy choices. They have very nice coffee. They have an excellent staff, and they have a mighty fine donut. Thank you so much, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, David. You're right about Paula's. I was just talking to my wife about this last night, and I reached the conclusion that Paula's is probably the place where the donut holes is the better way to go, because you can try a lot more types, because one Paula's and you're basically shot. Anyway, our next opportunity will go to Carol. Carol, congratulations. You were also on my nominating committee. However, I would like you to handle a different category. You're in charge of nominating the 3 best types of donuts to go into the Donut Hall of Fame. Carol Halstead.
Yes, I am a donut fan. And I like, my personal favorite is I think they call it the angel cream, the white cream. When I was growing up in the Falls, I think it was a place called Brooks Donut. And it was a white powdered sugar with the white cream. It was kind of messy. But now I like the ones that are the white cream filled with the chocolate icing on them. So that's my favorite. I know another favorite of some in my family is the peanut donut. So that definitely would have to be one of them. And another favorite of my husband is the Bavarian cream. But to me, the most disappointing thing that I've experienced with the donut is when I bought one that I thought was white cream and it ended up Bavarian cream when you take that bite and see the yellow cream. So disappointing. One thing I miss is the variety of donuts they used to offer us. I think they were from Tops. We'd have a donut Sunday at church monthly. However, with COVID, that's gone. And we used to get, when there was a breakfast bash, we would get tickets for donuts, and we'd always get the extra ticket so we could bring one home to have for the next day. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Carol. Fellow Toastmasters, I have long maintained that Toastmasters is most definitely a safe place. We can confess our sins amongst ourselves, and there is no judgment here among fellow Toastmasters. So here's a donut related confession. Back when Krispy Kreme was a flash in the pan in Western New York and you couldn't possibly even get your hands on the hot glazed donuts when the sign would light up because the line on the boulevard was ridiculous. One time my family and I, late afternoon, early evening, happened to catch it just right. The sign went on. We got our dozen glazed donuts, and I think we also bought a box of assorted other donuts. Went home with the intention of those being for dessert, and they turned into dinner. Now, there's a statute of limitations here. Don't call CPS on me. You know, the kids have grown up and they're fine and they're healthy. But I would like to ask Larry McKenzie. Larry, can you think of any time of overindulgence with donuts? Larry.
Sure, pick on the skinny guy. Overindulgence with donuts. Well, I must say that's an interesting question, because I was first introduced to the donut, not that I'm aging myself, but I was enticed to enjoy a donut when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And that was, let's just say 60 some years ago. And in that time, those donuts were not from a donut shop. My mom used to make donuts, and my grandmother also made donuts. Now, if you notice behind me, there's a lot of different style donuts with sprinkles and everything else. And I used to help my mom make these donuts, and we would drop them in, and they were delicious. None of them looked like this. They did have the holes in them and everything else because we had an actual donut cutter that we used. It was like a cookie cutter. But I have to tell you, those donuts have carried on throughout the years with me, because when we used to make them, we'd put sugar on them, or we would put cinnamon sugar or different things. But it was what we call today, and if you go to Dunkin' Donuts, an old fashioned. And I must say that I have eaten my share of old fashioned donuts over the course of my lifetime. Not lately, but I have to tell you, if I happen to stop into a Dunkin', or not a Dunkin', well, sometimes Dunkin', but Tim Hortons, and they say, would you like anything else? And even though I'm on this weight loss program, I still get an old fashioned donut. Do you know why? Because they're only 260 calories, and that 260 calories I can work off in a nice walk. But if I have that second donut, which sometimes is very enticing because you hate to buy just one. So I buy that second donut and I leave it in the car. It may sound strange, but I leave it in the car and I don't eat that second donut because I try to see how much willpower I have. The tough part is when you go out the next day and you see that donut and you say, oh, great, I left the donut, I'm going to have it. and then it's as hard as a rock. So I guess you would say my enticement to have donuts has been shot in the leg because of that. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, or Mr. Table Topics Master, whoever I'm talking to. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Larry. We'll go one more. I'll ask Mike Florio this question. Mike, surely you listened to all this as it relates to the Donut Hall of Fame, and you've got to be thinking, how could they possibly have forgotten blank? Mike.
Wow, how have they, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. Table Topics Master, you know, after listening to everyone, all these great stories, we were recently on vacation and we went somewhere. We went to Anna Maria Island and we went to this place called the Great Donut Experiment. And you could construct your own donut. It was really, what a great place to go. And we brought the kids. Now, granted, it was $1.50 for each donut. So you weren't going there and getting a dozen donuts, but you could have the proper consistency of chocolate. You could put peanuts on it if you wanted to. You could put sea salt. It was really a great experience to go there and build your own donut. I thought, wow. And I was just looking on here. It's on Anna Maria Island, and they have franchises. So why not? You know, you can build everything else. You can to perfection. You could construct your own donut. You know, I thought, wow, that was a pretty cool place. I mean, I would definitely go there again, and I would think that the kids would love it somewhere in Western New York. So it was a lot of fun. That's the way to go. That way, you know, that way you can build it exactly the way you want it. Mr. Table Topics Master. Very enticing too. I think I already said it.
All right, thank you, Mike. I'll call for reports. Our word master, Kate, how did the word do?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Mike threw it in there at the end and well within time, so we'll count that. David used it. Carol, I didn't believe I heard it. And she's not saying she didn't. No, she didn't. Larry used it 3 times. Maybe he'll share one of yours. And Mike.
All right, thank you, Kate. And Len, our timer, how did we do?
Well, most of our contestants qualified. David at 207, Carol at 209, and Mike at 137. Larry got a little winded talking about that stale donut in his vehicle, and he came in at 220, just beyond the buffer. Mr. Topic Master.
All right, so thank you, Len. There you have it, fellow Toastmasters. I believe then please cast your vote for either David or Mike. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay. Let me share screen here. Some more education about donuts. Let's see. Slideshow going. It's a one-slide slideshow. But as you can see here, there is a donut glossary that I found. There are different shapes of donuts. We have the twists, we have the bars. The maple bacon bar is one that's listed here. We have the ring donuts I mentioned earlier. They have the bear claws. They have the fritters. Some are buttermilk, some are glazed, some are frosted, some are crullers, all different shapes. Some are filled with jelly, some with cream, different types. They even have buttermilk donuts. But there's a few things here that were listed. Something called a walnut. I had to research that. So walnut is waffle and donut. And also, we have something called the Spud Nut. So that is peanut butter, or sorry, potato donut. So all different weird varieties of donuts. Who knew there was a potato donut? I did not. Some of you donut aficionados out there may know, but I did not. So at this point in the meeting, I want to address a few vacancies since some folks didn't make it yet. Thank you, Ryan, for stepping up as the alternate speaker. But Ryan does not have an evaluator. Could I ask you, Dave, to be Ryan's evaluator possibly? I know you don't know his topic or anything, but you're a veteran Toastmaster. I think you could pull it off.
I'll be happy to evaluate.
Okay, thank you.
What's
So Dave will
doing?
be our evaluator one.
What is he doing? Yes.
Well, I'll talk about that in a second. I do also have to address the fact that I don't have a general evaluator. Marty did not make it. So who would like to be my general evaluator? Eric, are you up for a general evaluation or is work too busy? Or maybe too busy, I don't know. Okay.
I'll
There.
step in, Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I was trying to hold out for Marty to make it, but he didn't make it. So the first speaker, Ryan, is doing a 5 to 7 minute speech. And I know his title is Finding the Silver Lining. Other than that, I don't know. I think it might be from the Persuasive Speaking Manual, if I recall correctly. So I got a nod from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. I know that's very little information, Dave, but I know you can still pull it off. All right. So please welcome Ryan versus his speech today.
Thank you. And good morning. A little bit of housekeeping up front. It is Persuasive Influence Level 1 Pathways, Evaluation and Feedback. It's a 5 to 7 minute speech in which I will actively apply feedback from for a second similar speech in the future. The title, Finding the Silver Lining. The term silver lining has a bit of a mixed history. It was either coined in 1634 by a gentleman named John Milton in a very famous poem, or Bradley Cooper in 2012. We all have that one friend that always likes to be optimistic. If you don't have that one friend, congratulations, you now do. Finding the silver lining isn't about washing away what has been bad or what has happened that no one enjoyed. Finding the silver lining is finding the extra approach, the extra little sprinkles on top of the donut to entice you to have the energy to get through the rest of the day. Silver lining considers just that little sliver of benefit that each situation might have brought, because it's all about perspective. I've talked about perspective numerous times in the past. I think it's one of the most important things that we can apply to our lives in order to keep moving forward. However, I've often been, as the Bare Naked Ladies are so famously quoted saying, the guy who laughs at a funeral. And it's not because of the situation in which we are in at a funeral. It's because when you're remembering somebody, you're looking back at the fondest, the happiest, sometimes the most intense or bizarre, but certainly the best creative memories at which stories are formed, reputations are built, and characters are made. And as we look back in those situations, we can understand why it's important to always consider the good in every situation. When we talk about finding optimism and considering optimism as part of our approach to the next steps. We don't apply it to every situation evenly, do we? When something goes wrong, we're often listing the reasons why it went wrong. We're not figuring out how it went wrong right away. We're not figuring out what we might be able to do so that it doesn't go wrong again. We're concerned with what's going wrong now. And all I'd like to do is remind each and every one of you that at the end of every storm, whether it's 1 hour or 1 day, the sun doth rise again. It does get warmer in Buffalo. It definitely gets colder too. But when there's snow, it's insulating your house. Your heating bills might be lower when there's 4 feet of snow on the ground than when there's only 1. So keep that in mind the next time you're complaining. Keep in mind that bad traffic just gives you an opportunity to reflect and meditate. Keep in mind that canceled plans at the last minute just frees up your schedule for a quick nap. Or, even better, you no longer have to see the people that you didn't want to see in the first place. Find each opportunity, find each activity, and find each event. And you owe it to yourself to get a list of 3 different benefits or silver linings that would come out of any outcome. Prepare for every scenario. Go through and have a plan, understand how to adapt that plan, and understand what your good, better, and best outcomes might look like. And then from there, continue to understand what each one brings to you in a positive way. We have to reinforce the positive in life because all too often we dwell on the negative. When something goes wrong, we definitely learned something. We learned how it went wrong and how we can do it different. We also learned that maybe that's not our favorite activity, especially when it goes wrong. What I challenge each of us to do as it comes to the next few days and weeks of our lives is every time we stub our toe, every time we get stuck behind a car going 15 miles an hour below the speed limit, every time we answer the phone from somebody we didn't want to talk to, or we hear from a distant relation that we haven't heard from in years. Think about 3 or 4 things that made that a good thing. Maybe when you're going for the ice bag for your toe, you found a lot of groceries that had to be thrown out in the freezer. Maybe when you answered the phone from somebody that you didn't want to talk to, maybe you learned something. But in everything, there is always a silver lining. And in every cloud, there's a silver lining. John Milton, 1634. I promise it wasn't Bradley Cooper. But the silver lining is I saw a couple people smile.
Thank you, Ryan, for that speech today. Our second speaker is Sylvia Baptiste, but we do have an evaluator, Tracy Farrell. Would you like to introduce her speech today?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today, Sylvia will be giving us an enticing speech. She's going to be giving her icebreaker from the leadership development pathways. Her time, Mr. Timer, is 4 to 6 minutes. And the purpose of her speech is to let the club know what she wishes, what skills she wants to gain in her new path. Once again, 4 to 6 minutes. Sylvia Baptiste.
You are on.
Need help?
That helps. How's that? Anyone could hear me? There's my first fumble. Thank you, Tracy and fellow Toastmasters. Not in 100 years would I ever thought or imagined that I would be joining a Toastmasters club and enjoying attending each week, even if it's a Zoom. Mr. Toastmaster, last week, you were table topics master, and you gave me the opportunity to speak why I would join Toastmasters and if I had learned any skills and applied it to my personal life. Off the cuff speaking is not my thing, as you could tell. And I must have fumbled through that because I did not win Toastmasters table topics that week. Well, that's water under the bridge. That's okay. In preparing for this speech this morning, I took my pen and some paper and I made a list. Why did I join Toastmasters? What happened during the week earlier that made me call for information regarding Toastmasters? It could be many things. And David, you are not the spokesperson of AM Lockport. Your wife is. She sold me on the program. She did a great job. Honestly, I can't remember what happened. It could have been many things. It could have been, I had a presentation earlier that week and it was awful. It would have been a large group to me, about 18 professional women. It could have been my communication skills. They were asking questions, and again, off the cuff, I had to answer them clearly and short. I don't think that was done successfully. Maybe it was to sharpen my listening skills. Listen to the whole question or the story. Don't judge before you hear it all. And think before you speak. I'll tell you a secret. Women don't do that. They do not think before they speak. Also, it could have been using the English language the way it's meant to be. I was not taught this. In 5th grade, they had this new teaching technique, open classroom concept. That was not for me. I needed someone over me telling me you have to do English, you have to read more, spelling. And I was not good at those subjects. So I never went to that center to learn more on reading, English language, applying it. But I was not the only one. There was 22, 23 of us in that classroom. We had a huge disadvantage due to our teacher was sleeping in class. Leadership development is like a job interview. How does employers start an interview? Well, they ask you, well, tell us something about yourself. And why do you want to work for our company, XYZ? One time I would fumble over this. Many times I would fumble over this. Who would ask this kind of question? Tell me something about yourself. I know myself better than anyone. Why would I fumble? And why do I want to work for your company? Well, of course, it's money, benefits. What a crazy question. Today, my answer would be different. I would say, let me tell you about myself in 6 words. Motivated, dependable, honest, trustworthy, flexible, and friendly. Why your company, XYZ? I would be an asset to your company and start listing my skills and hoping my communication skills would be in that list. Before Toastmasters, I would never even think of answering a question that way. But today, I think that's what employers want to hear. They want to hear that confidence in a person. The goals I have set to achieve are not only for Toastmasters, but for myself. I'm hoping that my boys would learn from my mistakes and know that their goals could be reached at any age. With everyone's help in Toastmasters, learning from each through evaluations, speeches, off-the-cuff speeches, life stories, I feel I can reach my goals. My goals don't have a deadline, so there is no pressure on me. Need to breathe first, learn from everyone, build confidence, smile, relax, and have fun, and be myself. I would like to thank each and every one of you for teaching me the better communications, encouraging me through evaluations, and being my Toastmasters family. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sylvia. Our third speaker today is Margot Bittner, and she is being evaluated by Jackie Kenny, apparently the third time in a row. Jackie is very qualified since she's had many chances to evaluate Margot, so she can even compare to previous speeches. Jackie, could you introduce your speech for us?
I'd be happy to. Margot is doing a research and presenting speech this morning, and her topic is going to be quite interesting to all of us, I think. But her goal is to research a topic and present a well-organized speech to the group. Do you have her title, Mr. Toastmaster?
I do have her title.
Then over to you.
Thank you so much. Margot's title today is, "Oh no, I'm the Grammarian." Margot Bittner, please welcome her.
Oh no, I'm the grammarian. I'm looking at everybody's faces except Jen's, who's today's grammarian, going, oh, I hate that job. Why did Toastmasters create the role of grammarian? It's very simple. When you're giving a speech and you have a wonderful message, your grammar can take that speech to a good speech up to a great speech. It's extremely important that you follow that role. And as you know, over the years, I've adopted this role as sort of mine, but I'd like everybody here to understand what the role is and be able to grow and actually enjoy doing it. Now, there's one thing our club is fabulous at. I don't care who the grammarian is, everybody can pick out those wonderful twists of phrase, the adjectives we've used, the nouns we've come up with, all those parts that really punch up a speech. We are absolutely wonderful about that. But what about the other side? And Elaine Moon used to tease me quite a bit about bringing up some of the negative things. But if we're going to go from here to here, that's what we need to do. So how do we make the role of grammarian enticing? Pick one or two things that really are discordant to your ear. For example, one of the things that always bothered me was when we had a noun that was a singular and a verb that was a plural, or a plural noun with a single verb. That used to drive me crazy. And I made sure for a few meetings to point that out. And over time, I noticed we were doing less and less of it. Likewise, the tense. If you are speaking in the past tense and all of a sudden you switch to the present, it's going to stand out in your speech. Something else that we have done a little more frequently on Zoom than we did in person is the double nouns. My mother, she. My brother, he. You only need one, either a noun or a pronoun. You don't need both. And that happens more in table topics than it does during speeches. One of my bugaboos lately is cliches. Sorry, Ryan. Every cloud is its silver lining is considered a cliche. But you turned it into a speech and a topic, which is very different than just throwing it in to fill some space. Fit as a fiddle, in the nick of time, all those kind of things. And there's a kind of for you, which is an improper use of grammar, are those that take away from the proper use of speech. Now, every week we are always pointing out the kind ofs, which was my next topic, which is why I was looking at it. Gonnas, wannas, those are the things we do in the vernacular. And if you're speaking one-on-one with a person, you tend to use them. But if you're planning a speech, do what you can to make sure you eliminate those. Write it out. Say it out loud. Sometimes when I'm giving a speech, I'll go over it in my head, but it's very different to speak it in my head than to actually sit and say the words. If you say the words, you're going to concentrate more on those endings, the want tos and the goings. And that's the other one is my bugaboo too is slowing down. If you slow down, you actually correct your own grammar more often than you think. How you doing today? I'm doing good. No, you're doing well. So some of those words are the other phrases I've been hearing a lot that maybe we need to think about. Ending a sentence with a preposition might be fine in speaking. Written grammar sometimes is different. I know I shouldn't say that, but it tends to be a little more formal. And the phrase I always think of is Winston Churchill's using the phrase, something I will put up with. And his secretary corrected his grammar. And he said, correcting my grammar is something up with which I will not put. Now that phrase is perfectly fine grammatically, but it's a little awkward, especially in public speaking. How about our friend, the adverb? When we are speaking and we're defining a verb or an adjective, a noun, we're using different terms. So we don't do things different, we do them differently. There's phrases that we use very commonly that can be the chalk on the chalkboard, to use a cliche, for some of us. So when you're looking it up, if you have a question, there are some great resources online. And I don't mean Grammarly, but you can look up what's an adverb and how do I use the sentence. Another area for me is the difference between since and because. Did you know those were different words? Since indicates time, because indicates a reason. Now, how do I know that? Because my brother tells me that all the time. He's an editor, and whenever I write something, even in an email, he emails me back to correct me. You gotta love little brothers. They're so sweet sometimes. But that's one of his bugaboos. And so now I've been picking up on that one as well. So I hope some of these hints have helped you. If you're going to be the grammarian, you want some help, I'm right here. I've been in the middle of meetings when the person was a new grammarian and said, hey, Margot, sit here. I'm happy to do it, or to put it in the chat. But if you have some questions, let me know. And in any case, you don't have to say, oh no, I'm the grammarian, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Margot. Could I get a timer's report, Len?
You may indeed, Mr. Toastmaster. I'm pleased to report that all three of our speakers qualified today. Ryan at 6:21, Sylvia at 6:04, and Margot at 6:15. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you.
You're on mute.
Please take a moment to vote on the poll, as I will myself. If you're like me, you may go into a donut shop and say, What flavors have I not had? What's the flavor of the day? Donut of the month. Let's try that. That's new and exciting, possibly. I do that for ice cream as well. As an aside. So what new flavors might be out there? I've seen that they have carrot cake flavors. They have a funfetti donut, if you like the funfetti cakes. They have actual blueberries in blueberry donuts. Red velvet, might not be completely authentic, but it's a good try. Key lime, sticky orange, pieces of orange peel possibly in it. And I've actually seen one that's pineapple with an actual whole pineapple slice on the top of it. That must be tricky to make. So they have quite a few wide varieties for sure. One donut shop they had in the Adirondacks near Tupper Lake, they had the cake donuts, but all the different icings. So that's how they got away with having the same donut, but all different flavors. So they probably had 30 flavors of donuts, but really only one donut. So that's an interesting way to do things as a business person in production, but still very delicious. Some people just like to eat the plain cake donuts. I don't know if that'd be equivalent to vanilla ice cream as an analogy. In my mind, it is. At this point, I'd like to introduce our evaluators if they are ready. Dave Licata, are you ready to evaluate Ryan? All right, you're up.
Where'd Lenny go? Oh dear, hang on. There he is. I found Lenny, thank you. Now my evaluation begins. Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, and especially Ryan. Ryan, you have a very engaging, enticing smile that lends itself to zooming. And you were front and center with that smile, and that invited the audience in. I also want to salute your topic. That's just an excellent topic because indeed, everything has a silver lining. I promise you that because presently I am president of the Lockport Sunrise Optimist Club, and optimists, we can find a silver lining in any situation. And I was so glad to hear Ryan reinforce that today. So that was strong. Excellent topic, great smile, sincerity oozing from every pore. So that was a great opening. That was a great way to line up the audience and bring them into your circle of influence. So I salute you for that. You also had very nice lighting today. You were lit up. We saw your features, which certainly aided your speech. But to get back to my personal favorite, please stand up. Please. Because that way you can get those arms in play and use them. After all, I saw the hula girls use their arms, and every gesture tells a story when you're watching a hula. Trust me, I paid close attention to the hula girls. Now, gestures are the exclamation points to your speech. So if you stand up, you have more opportunity for gestures. I told you what I liked. I told you what you could work on, and now I want to tell you what I loved. I loved Ryan's brief sermon this morning because there's always a way to cope with life's clouds. Even the pandemic has had a silver lining because I found out that I brought back my longer wave in the front, and as my brother said, I look 10 years younger. Thank you so much for that reminder. Every cloud has a silver lining. And thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dave. Our second evaluator, Tracy, are you ready?
I am, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you very much. Today we heard from Sylvia, and I believe this is her second path that she's working on, and she's made so much progress in Toastmasters. She was very comfortable today, and her speech was very well organized. She started off telling us about her past in Toastmasters, and she gave us a lot of stories, which always engages the audience. And then some of the things that she learned in those stories, like listening and thinking before you speak, which is always a big one for a lot of us, at least for me, thinking, and once again, overthinking. So those things are real important things to learn in Toastmasters. She also gave us the results of her experiences in Toastmasters and how she would answer interview questions. And those were also very interesting too, because she was very confident in her answers to those interview questions. And I know a lot of us still might not be confident enough to answer the way she did, but she would have answered those questions perfectly. And she also gave us examples of what she's learned in her Toastmasters journey. She's learned from evaluations, from speeches. She's learned how to put stories into her speeches, which makes them more engaging, and to speak off the cuff. And then, as part of her project today, she gave us what she hopes to continue to learn in this path, to build more confidence and to learn how to be yourself in a speech, not try to be somebody else or come off as somebody else, but be herself in her speech. And evaluations, to give stronger evaluations. I think you've done a great job so far in Toastmasters, and you really have progressed. I also have to point out another thing that you did very well is I had an awkward pass off and I didn't introduce your speech, but you did a great job putting in the title of your speech. You were very comfortable doing that. Some of the improvements that you might make, I can only think of one, and that is you were muted when you began your speech. And just as a suggestion, when your evaluator is introducing you to unmute and prepare before being introduced. If I'm going to give you a challenge, it would be to tell us what your ultimate goal is in this path. Is it a career advancement or something like that? Share us where you want to be at the end of this path. Otherwise, you did a fantastic job in this speech, and I've seen a lot of improvement. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Tracy, for that evaluation. Our third evaluator, Jackie Kenny, are you ready?
I am, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you. Margot presented something that she researched this morning. That's part of each path. So all of us get there at some point. It was a very important message. She talked about things in speech that all of us hear. Sometimes we don't notice them. Perhaps we'll be a little more aware now of changing tenses, of using singular paired with plural, and different ways that we use language in speaking versus writing. Your diction is always excellent, and I think that's something that's so important. We all hear speakers who are sloppy in the way that they talk. Their speech is not crisp, and yours always is, and I, for one, very much appreciate that. But I have to say, Margot, you cheated. Your project directs you to choose a topic with which you are not familiar, or something that you want to learn more about. And we all know you as grammarian. You gave yourself a softball with this one, I think. But it was something that all of us enjoyed hearing, that all of us need to pay attention to. So you jacked us all up about our speech, how we present ourselves, and how very important it is to make sure that the language that we use is correct, that we have chosen our words carefully, and bring that forward whenever we're speaking. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for your presentation mastery today, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, switched over devices, but I am still sallying forth. Thank you for your evaluation, Jackie. Can I get a timer's report at this time? Len?
You may indeed, Mr. Toastmaster. Once again, I'm pleased to report that all 3 of our contestants qualified. David at 2:55, Tracy at 3:06, and Jackie at 2:14 in the evaluation category. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Len. Please take a moment to vote for your favorite evaluator. If I did not mention it, please provide also some words of encouragement through the chat, direct message to the speakers. Always good to have an additional improvement and or encouragement. Many of our speakers today have talked about donut franchises. That was the next thing on my list to talk about. And there are quite a few in the area, certainly. The regular donut chains that most people think of, the Tim Hortons and the Dunkin' Donuts, none of those were mentioned because those are just okay donuts. Paula's is the big donut, of course, if you want that. Paula's quite a good business model because they branched out, having Paula's donuts mixed into ice cream at Lake Effect Ice Cream, even partnered with Flying Bison for the peanut stick porter, which I am a fan of. So they have branched out. So love that. Frankie's, of course, in Niagara Falls. I was a fan of that growing up. Donut Craze, I actually learned about in other locations, but they are here as well now. So those are delicious. So if you have a chance to visit Donut Craze, you should definitely be enticed by the different positive feedback different Toastmasters I provide today for that location. But back in the day, Krispy Kreme, when it first got here, I remember they had a whole big shindig. They brought clowns to bring into families. They had a long line of people to get the Krispy Kreme donuts when it first got here on Niagara Falls Boulevard. They are super delicious, as Mark indicated. When the light is on and they're fresh off the line, holy. When I go to Erie, I often bring those back for the family. They're melted in your mouth, especially warm. At this point in the meeting.
Hey, Gerald, before you go on to reports, can I just throw one more thing in?
Sure.
Do you know that donuts are a religious food for me?
I did see that on Wikipedia, that there is a Jewish version of the donut. Would you like to expand on that?
Absolutely. Well, they're cooked in oil. So every Hanukkah, we are supposed to have sufganiyot, which are jelly donuts. So every year we have a jelly donut day because that is actually a food for Hanukkah. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
Absolutely. There are a lot of versions of donuts. It was too many types of donuts internationally to even talk about. There's the version in Japan where they put red bean paste in the donut. Doesn't sound very good to me. And I did not have it when I was there. But definitely go on Wikipedia and read about all that. That could definitely be a whole nother Toastmasters theme, international donuts, if someone is interested in a theme. I would like to call for reports at this time. The general evaluator, Marty, is going to step in when called upon to provide his report, but I'm going to give him a few minutes to evaluate the evaluators and write down his report before I call on him. So I'm going to go up the list here that I have. Let's start off with the quiz master. Phil, do you have a few questions for us today?
Right. You ready?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
We're ready.
We're ready.
I'm using new technology that I'm trying out, and I got to see how it works. Yeah, there's a gotta. I need to work on my grammar, as Margot said. All right, let us move on to some questions. What donut shop in Buffalo did Dave mention? That is
Freddy's.
Freddy's. Who made Larry McKenzie's favorite donut?
Mom.
Grandma and Mom.
Yep. Sylvia. Who was the spokesperson who convinced her to join Toastmasters?
Annette.
Annette.
Annette Licata.
Annette Wadowski-Licata.
Even me, I don't know any of this. This was done behind my back.
You were out gallivanting, having coffee and donuts somewhere.
As far as Ryan is concerned, what does every cloud have?
Silver lining.
All right, now the final finale. What was my favorite donut at the Amish Route 18 bakery?
Oh, it was a greasy
Apple
fritter.
fritter.
Apple fritter.
Apple fritter. Yeah, greasy apple fritter.
Was very enticing, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Phil, for your quiz questions. Can I get a tech and gesture master report from Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Well, this morning, Dave talked about standing up. So I tried it and I realized my head's really small because of the angle of my camera. So I have to lean forward. So I can even fail myself. But I'd like to, before I go into that, I want to say I want to ode to a donut. In order to channel my inner drill sergeant, all I had to do was think about a jelly donut. And that scene where he holds it up and he says, "Gentlemen, you owe me for one jelly donut." And that is kind of a wonderful small scene that I used to just get into character if I needed to, if I wasn't in character. Backgrounds and setups, everyone I think has gotten to the point to where that's not even anything right now. I think everyone's gotten that down. So going right into gestures, Mark, you definitely talk with your hands and you express yourself. I like that. Several other people did that as well. Larry, Margot, to name a few. Dave had a myriad of things. When he said myriad, he used his hands gesture like that. Larry, you counted. He talked about 2 donuts and then that 1 donut. I like that. And then he said, bye-bye. The winner today, though, has to go to Margot. She talked about it. Clearly it was planned because she moved back from the camera. She changed distance so you could see her. And she talked about being from ear to here, that she does not care. Sorry, Ryan, blah, blah, blah. She held her hand up and then she loved things. So that is my report. Very well done, everyone. Please remember, you can use, oh my God, I lost the word, props in your speeches, still even on Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tom. Marty, Justin, are you ready for a general evaluator's report?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and Gerald for the wonderful theme this morning, donuts.
I've been spoiled with donuts because I work at Tops, and I'm living proof that you can eat as many donuts as you want and not gain any weight. Believe that, and I'll tell you another one. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My job this morning as general evaluator is to evaluate the Toastmaster and the evaluators. I'll start with the Toastmaster of the day. Gerald, I enjoyed your theme, as I stated, about donuts. You had all the roles filled. Meeting started on time. You had good information on donuts, on filler information, if you will, filling the donuts along the way. And you had all the required information you needed for the Toastmasters, the speakers. One thing that I would suggest, if you didn't do, and I may be wrong, and I think we all need to work on this, myself included, is to introduce the speaker with more background information about the speaker. There's a good introduction on how to do that in the old Competent Communicator Manual, which I truly love and enjoy, and I still have it to this day, even though it's tattered and torn and has coffee spills all over. There's a wealth of information in it. And in that Competent Communicator Manual, and you could even Google it, it says introducing a speaker. I think it helps the audience. It puts the audience in position to prepares them to listen to the speaker. It gives them, but you can look at it, everyone can check it out. But I would definitely suggest that. Overall, Gerald, you did a wonderful job. I like the colored background of the donuts. It made me want to reach my arm out and grab one or two or three and just start eating them during the meeting. So I like that background with the donuts. Okay, thank you, Gerald. Moving into the evaluation portion of the meeting for the evaluators. All three of our evaluators used the sandwich approach in different levels, if you will, at different aspects of it. And Dave with Ryan. And Dave, one thing that I liked what you said with Ryan, to use hand gestures and to stand up. And I'm very thankful for the committee that is working on locations. We can have our meetings live again, so we will be able to stand up and give presentations. I think we've all been spoiled by sitting, and I know sometimes some of the members stand, and I get a lot more out of it when I'm standing, and I think the other members do too, because you're able to use more gestures and you can get more into your speech. You can use your natural gestures, and it's hard to do while you're sitting. So Dave, kudos to you for mentioning that to Ryan. Tracy, I was glad that you mentioned about Sylvia's growth. I've definitely seen growth in her leadership and speaking ability over the last couple of years. And you gave her a challenge, which was great. And Jackie, I enjoyed your evaluation of Margot as well. You pointed out her strong points. You gave her a suggestion for her project on researching her project in a topic. And then you did definitely mention that it was important for us. The information that Margot did share was definitely important. I would like to thank the Toastmaster and the evaluators this morning for a job well done. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Our grammarian, Jen Zappa, are you ready for your report?
I am, and I did take notes on grammar and not the use of filler words, even though I may not have introduced my role correctly today. So a couple of general notes I have, things that we tend to do, many of us tend to do often. are to use a lot of run-on sentences. That's number one. And number two, either using vague language where we're not being very precise in our words, or perhaps using redundant language where we say a word, a similar word in our sentence. So some of the items that I've noted down will have examples of that. Gerald, you used the word cause today instead of because at one point. Dave, a language use that I liked today, a mighty fine donut. I enjoyed that phrase. Ryan, you used a phrase, might have brought. I thought might bring might have been a more clear way to phrase that. It sounded a bit awkward to me. Sylvia, you had a couple of moments in your speech where you changed your sentence direction, and so you dropped a word that I think may have made your language more clear. You said, gave me opportunity to speak why instead of about why. And due to our teacher was sleeping, which I think you started one way and you went in another direction mid-sentence, so it sounded a bit awkward. Margot, I enjoyed your phrase, one of my bugaboos. And Dave, another phrase I enjoyed of yours, gestures are exclamation points. So I'm putting a couple of those in here today as well. Tracy said, share us where you want to be instead of share with us where you want to be. Jackie, a vague use of language from you. It was something that. I'm not sure what something is in that case. Phil used the final finale, and Tom used kind of wonderful. So some vague language, some duplicative language. Overall, using a single word is more difficult when you're speaking than it is when you're writing things down. But these are all areas where I think that we could improve, and hopefully Margot appreciates my grammarian role today, even though it is not one of my favorites. I will turn it back over to Gerald.
Thank you, Jen. Michael Licata, could you entice Toastmasters not to use the word or Your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. This morning, we had many strong speakers, but I did catch a couple ahs and ums. David had 2. Larry had 1 pregnant pause. Carol had 3. Mike Florio had 1. Ryan, I caught with 2 pregnant pauses. Sylvia had 1 pregnant pause. Margot had 2 and a restart. Tracy, I noticed that you used the word and 3 times as a connector, and that kind of it piggybacks on what Jen said about run-on sentences. Thomas had 1. Marty had 3 and a restart, and that is my report this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. And last, certainly not least, our word master, Katie Orr.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fun topic today. Donuts were very enticing. The word faltered off a bit, but nicely used for those of you who did. And you squeezed one in at the end as well. So you had 3. Jen said the word Jim, Thomas, Phil, Ryan, and Dave, in addition to our table topics. Did I miss anyone? I'm not sure. You can please use entice during your day
I
today.
used it up front to entice people to be grammarian.
Excellent. Oh, I'm sorry, Margot. Of course you did. Thank you very much, Mr. Toast.
Thank you, Katie. I turn the meeting over to the president, Tom, and if we could ask for the award winners and maybe end with some announcements. And by all means, go grab another donut today.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Everyone, a round of applause. And a toast to donuts. I don't know if we had a toast, but it's Toastmasters, a toast to donuts. May they always fill the holes in our lives. Thank you. Before I announce the winners, I wanted to just make everyone aware. I was going through our website, and one of the things I saw is some people haven't updated their profile in like 5 years. maybe go back in, make sure you have a photo in there, make sure, because it helps with the itinerary to quickly see who is in what role. And it also is nice to be able to read about your experience with Toastmasters. So if you've grown in Toastmasters, I think your profile should grow. All right, with that, today's Table Topics master, or Table Topics winner, was Dave Licata. Thank you, Dave, for the education on all the different history of donuts that you were able to come up with. I have a feeling either you maybe snuck in a little research knowing the topic and hoping that you were going to be called on while you're on one of your plane flights. Our winner for evaluator of the day was Jackie Kenny. Thank you, Jackie. Very well done sandwich approach. And our speaker for today, although she doesn't expect it, is Sylvia. Sylvia, wonderful job. Vast improvement.
Thank you. I'd like to accept this award. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next week's meeting. Yes, Dave, I know. You have next week's meeting. Do you want to say a few words?
Well, first of all, I had no idea what the topic was until I signed on because I was away. I do have a plethora of knowledge, you know that by looking at me. And the donut, I go way back to a little shop in Lockport where the guy had automatic spud nuts. I thought that was fascinating, but donuts are, they're just wonderful things. So here's the topic for next week. Pay close attention. Write this down. George the Hound Lorenz. George the Hound Lorenz. Be ready to be drenched in Buffalo radio lore next week. So that's the clue. Do a little research on George the Hound Lorenz.
Thank you, Dave. I'm going to open it up to a general.
Wait a minute.
Dave, go ahead.
Wait. If I had known the theme, I would have put on my Freddy's Donut shirt.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
By the way, Dave, it is George the Hound Dog Lorenz.
Oh,
the hound dog. Yes, George. I've heard it used both ways, Larry.
I was just trying to help you for your reference. You said to do research.
I appreciate that. But this is going to be another exercise on how Buffalo got chipped.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. We're wrapping up the meeting. We can talk in a couple minutes offline. At this point, does anyone else have any other announcements? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Mr. President, I just want to reiterate that there's a club officer training, which is the third, and I believe it'll be the final training. It's August 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. And there's information on the computer, on the email. If anyone has any questions, let me know. But that is part of the Distinguished Club program. There's 2 trainings for the club officers to attend from June 1st to August 31st. And as I said, this is the last of the first round of officer trainings for the Distinguished Club point.
That is a backup, correct? So like if you haven't attended one of the others yet, this
any clubs that still need those points, they can have members attend. And yours truly has a small segment I'll be presenting on retention and engagement of membership. So thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Marty. Hey, Marty, please text me. Please text me on that so that I don't miss your part. I actually want to watch it.
It should have come in an email. Maybe you didn't get it. I thought everybody got it, but maybe it was an
It should have been yesterday.
Yes, last night maybe.
Okay, that's why I haven't seen it. Okay, but text me the day out so that I make sure to remember, because you're my sponsor here, so I want to be able to pay you back for all the wonderful advice you've given me. Going through all my notes, I don't see any other announcements. We're going to talk about the hybrid meeting in Post Toasties, so please stick around. Other than that, thank you for another wonderful week. Thank you everyone for participating and being here. And AM Lockport is worth getting up for. Thank you.